All right, guys, welcome back. Still dealing with the waste product of putting this raw material into this machine. We're at our third one, so we'll be halfway through after this. It's a French term, so it's going to be unfamiliar to most of you. The term is anomie, Anomie. And what it means is the experience of not knowing what standards to apply to your life. This term comes to us from Emile Durkheim, who is the guy who comes up with the entire idea of the collective consciousness, also known as the collective conscience, in the first place. Anomie is the result of having too many beliefs in this quadrant, too many beliefs in the collective conscience, so that we don't exactly know what we are supposed to do. Remember, Durkheim, when he's talking about the collective consciousness, he differentiates between a simple collective conscience in which everybody basically believes the same thing, and a more complex one, which he describes as a weaker collective conscience or collective consciousness, in which there's a lot more diversity of beliefs. And we live in a weak collective consciousness. Now, a weak collective consciousness is good in a lot of ways. I've got more freedom to pick how I want to go about my life. Remember, beliefs are about telling us how we're supposed to live our lives. But too much freedom can be a problem too, because if you guys actually are at the perfect age to start dealing with this. I'm going to get out of the way so you can see Anomie. This is almost certainly the experience of every college student at some point. What do you do? What are you going to major in? What are you going to get? What are you going to do for your job? And what are the beliefs that should inform that decision? Should you try to get a job that is going to make you feel happy and fulfilled? Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, personal fulfillment, that's part of our collective consciousness. Maybe that's how you should make your choice. But what about the idea that you should be doing something that's good and useful for society? I mean, it's not all about you, right? So you should maybe pick something that is going to be the most useful thing to other people. That makes sense. That's a belief that we have, that we should be kind and good. Perfect. Do that. Don't do the self-fulfillment. Do the, I'm going to sort things out and try to make the best world I can for other people. That makes sense. But you know, a lot of those jobs don't pay all that much, and maybe you could do that in your spare time, and maybe what you really need to be thinking about is, how are you going to pay the bills? I mean, a lot of people your age end up moving back in with their parents, so maybe what you should be thinking about is, okay, I can do those fulfilling things in my spare time, I can help people out in my spare time, but what I need to major in is something that is going to get me a good job so I don't end up in my parents' basement for the rest of my life. That's what you should do. And you can see from there, just from that, and I hope I didn't cause any of you any stress, but you can see just from there, how do you know which one to pick? I mean, yeah, in an ideal world, they all come together, but kind of good luck with that. I have a fantastic job that gives me a lot of autonomy, a lot of creativity, but it doesn't pay all that well. And I sometimes feel like I'm shouting into the void. Am I actually making an impact on people? God, who knows? It's hard to, when you're growing up, when you're in junior high and high school, middle school and high school, you're thinking, well, yeah, I can do all these things. You get to college and the reality starts to hit in that most people aren't able to find something that hits all of those things. How do you know which one to pick? That experience, that not being sure, that's anomie. I experience it right now. I'm 49 years old and I still experience it. Do I try to orient my life to being the best professor I could possibly be? Yeah, that makes some sense. But I also have 2 kids. Maybe what I need to do is orient my entire life to them. Well, that makes some sense too, right? But I fell in love with their mom, 20 years before I met either of them. Maybe I should be devoting all of my life to her and her happiness. Well, that makes sense too. But I'm 49 years old. I'm not getting any younger. I got to be thinking about taking care of my body, or I'm not going to be here for any of them. So maybe I need to do that with my time. And again, how do you pick? It's really hard. When you are in a strong collective consciousness, when everybody believes the same thing, you don't have any freedom of choice. That's lousy, but simple. We don't have that. And Durkheim says this experience this experience of anomie is something that happens once our strong collective consciousness starts to fracture. Globalization, the movement of ideas, beliefs, and and goods as well, from one society to another, which we have tons of, right? I mean, we're constantly encountering ideas, people, news, products from other societies. All this does is just muddies the water even more. How do you know what to pick? The answer is, unfortunately, you don't. Kind of like with apathy, it's hard to just say, well, I'm going to care about everybody, and I'm also going to easily make a choice and just stick with it. It's hard. The reality is, you aren't built for this. These are waste products that are going to happen to you almost certainly, and it's not your fault. And there is something to be said for kind of cutting yourself a break with this. Be aware that you will melt down at times, and that's because it's not on you. It's not because of you that that's happening. It's because you can't possibly sort all this out. It's just too much. All right, well, that's cheerful, isn't it? I'll be back in the next video where we will talk not about the quantity of beliefs, which is what leads to anomie, but the quality of a particular belief, our belief in rationalization, the process of making things efficient. So I'll see you in that one.